Do you remember seeing articles over the last few years about scientists being able to collect actual biological matter and DNA from dinosaur fossils and what the possibilities were in their ability to actually recreate long extinct creatures? How about the AI debate? AI is everywhere, becoming more and more embedded into our daily lives. Do you want to know what my first thoughts were on that? No, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you anyway. My first, second, and third thoughts were, hasn't there been like 12 movies explaining in very specific detail why all of this is a terrible idea? In Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey, the computer HAL allowed for access to vast information. Today, smartphones and the internet allow for access to a wealth of information instantly, fulfilling a similar vision. But will this convenience of having extensive information at our fingertips lead to the rest of Clarke's vision? In his stories, Isaac Asimov envisioned intelligent home automation, where homes could manage themselves and respond to human commands. Today, technologies like voice controlled assistants like Siri and Alexa, smart thermostats, and automated lighting systems have made smart homes a reality. However, Asimov didn't really see that as humanity's happily ever after. Even in the Jetsons, the 1960s cartoon, Rosie the robot served as a household assistant. Although not yet common or really affordable, companies like Tesla producing Optimus, as well as other companies producing robotic vacuums and our AI assistants, have made significant progress towards realizing the dream of fully autonomous robots. But how did that work out for us in movies like The Matrix and Battlestar Galactica? For over 200 years, science fiction has fascinated and entertained people all over the world, dazzling us with tales of glittering starships and space princesses from galaxies far, far away. We marvel at the technologies and concepts our fictional worlds seem to predict for our own. Science fiction uniquely captivates its audience, inspiring them to delve deeper into the genre through collecting memorabilia, engaging in discussions, and even embodying their favorite characters through cosplay. It has a power to ignite a passion for science, literature, and creativity, leading many fans to pursue careers as scientists, authors, and filmmakers, leaving their own mark in the world of science fiction. Even though respected scientists like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking have penned their own science fiction novels, the genre is still considered by many, especially in the literary community, as no more than unserious pulp fiction. And that has been the genre's greatest accomplishment, convincing the masses that science fiction is no more than harmless, spirited fun, when in actuality, cloaked underneath the silly aliens and ray guns, lies the true purpose of our chrome-plated fantasies. And it couldn't be further from unserious. Inside the stellar and glittering cheese lies the bitter pill that is science fiction's secret mission. Sci-fi has been trying to save humanity from itself, and thanks to centuries of evidence, I can prove it. Hey there, nerds. I'm your host, DanielleSoncasie, published science fiction author and registered super nerd. And this is Comics and, well, literally everything. The channel where we dive into all things dorky, share all the best nerdy news, and spill all the tea on all that hot geeky goss. You can help support the channel in the easiest and freest way possible. All you have to do is click that like button, click the subscribe, and make sure to ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I'm back with even more nerdy goodness. So drop a comment, say hello, share to your friends. Let's get the ball rolling. Aside from a general agreement that it is fiction that involves some sort of time travel, space, and or fantastical technology, defining science fiction can be pretty tricky. Fans and scholars alike have struggled to do so since the very beginning, which is also a bit of a hot button issue lacking a consensus. One belief identifies the ancient Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, circa 2150 to 2000 BCE, as the actual first science fiction story, while others believe that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, published in 1818, the classic mad scientist warning of using technology to play God and the responsibility of creators for their creations. A lot of people see that as the beginning of the science fiction genre. And yes, Edgar Allan Poe did contribute with his gothic horror science fiction, but it really started to take off with the very prolific Jules Verne in the Victorian era. Since Shelley, Poe, and Verne, science fiction continued to proliferate and evolved with the technological and psychosocial advancements as well as the status quo. Conflicts like both world wars and the threat and fear of communism further influenced and grew sci-fi under authors like H.G. Wells, Robert Heinlein, and George Orwell. While Verne's books were often celebrated for their adventurous, optimistic spirit and the foresight into scientific innovation, authors like Wells, Orwell, and Heinlein took the genre to the darker corners of the human experience. With the introduction of motion pictures, comic books, and television, sci-fi grew its audience exponentially. Despite being seen by the general public as inconsequential entertainment, the mid-20th century produced some of the most lauded science fiction literature. Orwell's Animal Farm in 1984, Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, Frank Herbert's Dune, and of course, Arthur C. Clarke's masterpiece of the silver screen, 2001: A Space Odyssey, solidified the fact that science fiction wasn't distracting entertainment for the immature and uneducated peasants. It was a valid art form, weaving intricate, engrossing, and complex tapestries that spoke not only to our imaginations, but to our collective conscience. Sci-fi saw the world not only how it was and what it could be, but also what it would be if we were not mindful of ourselves. Inspired by the leading figures in classic science fiction, our modern-day sci-fi authors and creators continue this mission of warning humanity through entertainment to save it from itself. Perhaps due in part to the fact that science fiction has often been seen as trivial, it could have kept us from heeding some of the more important messages from the stories of our past. As time progresses and the world evolves, these warnings have become darker and more evident. Or is it the changes in our world that are making these messages more apparent? Considering the scientific revolution and the significant discoveries in astronomy, physics, and mathematics that took place during the early days of the budding genre, it makes sense that the two men considered as its fathers lived during this time, though born decades apart. The breakthroughs of this era were nonetheless impactful when it came to capturing the imaginations and fears of both men. Jules Verne was the French maestro of sci-fi romance. Think of him as the original I Told You So guy, okay? His tales like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth were not just about adventure, but also about the science that could make it happen. He was all about the gadgets, the submarines, and the steam-powered contraptions. He's the father of steampunk. Verne's vision was rooted in the science of his day and extrapolated into the future with a dash of imagination. On the other hand, H.G. Wells, the British wizard himself, took a slightly different track with his scientific fantasies. With works like The Time Machine and War of the Worlds, he wasn't just interested in the how, but deeply rooted in the what if in terms of society, evolution, and human nature. His stories often carried social commentary, questioning the implications of scientific advancements on humanity. Verne's narratives are like detailed blueprints. He loved the specifics. Wells, however, painted with broader strokes, creating scenarios that left you pondering the future of mankind. Both were prophets, so to speak, in their own right, but while Verne's predictions often seemed like a checklist for inventors, submarines, helicopters, Wells was more about the societal shifts, like the class warfare between the Eloi and the Morlocks in The Time Machine. Verne's stories have a certain optimism and belief in progress. Wells, though, could be quite the cynic, often showing the dark side of human nature when it is faced with the unknown. If Vern was the engineer dreaming up the next big thing, Wells was the philosopher pondering if we should build it. Together they laid down the tracks for what would become science fiction, one with his eye on the stars and the other on the mirror reflecting humanity.
Disney and Kathleen Kennedy are gonna get you!